that have taken place since the release of the free version almost 9 years ago. We are currently at version 8. The free version was actually based on version 2 of the commercial product. What we wanted to do, what we wanted to accomplish with that, was to give the users something that was similar in functionality to the original free version we released back in 2000 and perhaps 2001, I believe, maybe. But giving this something with a newer architecture. And we had just finished up working on version 2. So what we did was we decided to make something like version 1 with the capabilities of version 1, which was our free version, but using the new architecture of version 2. So what we did was we removed some of the newer features like layer support and a few of the other features, and we called it version 1.2, the free version, and we released that to the users. One of the biggest requests we had for the free version was to make the program much smaller. This was because at the time, 9 years ago, people were still using dial-up quite a bit, and they wanted to be able to download the program much more quickly. We went from, I think it was about 14 megs down to about 4 megs. And the only way we could accomplish that was by removing the image magic, which we use for conversion of different file formats. And that was really the largest component we had in the entire package. And we also removed one other feature, which was the radiant lens flare engine, which was about 2 megs. And that wasn't really a significant change, but the design goal was to support basically 3 file formats: BMP, JPEG, and Targa. Targa has always been our default file format because it's a very versatile file format. It supports all the features that we use, such as alpha channel and full 24-bit and 32-bit imaging. And it's an old format that's been around as an industry standard. Has been used since the beginning of the industry, basically, with some of the original Targa video frame buffers that were first available for the PC. But we also wanted to support BMP, which is a Windows native format, and JPEG. Unfortunately, this was at the exact time that the JPEG patent issue scare arose, and it was just impossible to support JPEG at that time. So that's why we ended up with basically 2 file formats, BMP and Targa, in the free version. Now, since then, quite a lot has changed in the industry. Even back then, we had 2 and 3 and 4 gigahertz computers, but they were very power hungry. That was in the time of the net burst architecture for Intel, and sometime around that time AMD started coming out with the Athlon 2s, and that really started to change the industry. The processors were less power hungry and performed more instructions per cycle, and that's when things really started to change. And then later came multiple cores. Quite a few other things have changed in the industry. Multiple cores are one of the big things that have changed. Since version 1.2, the free version, we've started supporting multiple cores. We started in version 4, and that was sort of a system-wide optimization to try to make things on average more quick. But in version 5 and 6, especially 6, we really started getting serious with it, and we really started multi-threading just about everything in the program. Version 6 is when we renamed the program Howler, which really represented the speed we were able to get by using that multi-threading so much more. We also optimized a lot more for SSE2, that's the streaming SIMD instructions. Since version 3.5 we've been using MMX, but we've also added the SSE2. Since version 6, that's been the baseline requirement. In fact, all of our C code requires the SSE2, and there's also a lot of hand-coded assembler that supports the SSE2, and especially in some of our new motion prediction tools and that sort of thing, and I'll talk about those later. But one of the biggest things you'll notice in the program when you start it up, comparing Howler 8, that's the Howler 8.2 in fact is the current version. Our code name is called Skylocks or Skyock Egret. We like to use code names now. We got kind of bored with just version numbers. So we've made a number of changes since the free version in the interface, as well as changes to the display technology being used. But the interface has changed significantly. If you look at the side, the tools have gone from being row-centric to column-centric. Before, each tool was in a row. I think there was 4 or maybe 5 rows of 4 columns or something like that. But now everything is just straight down the side. We also have the option of working in 2 columns if you're short on display space. You can also change that. Also, the ability to pop panels out of the way is a nice optimize to make more screen space. So as you can see here, there's a sidebar. Instead of having the floating tool panels, we've moved more to a sidebar, which is embedded and ingrained inside the main window. All these are tabs that can be expanded, telescoped, you might say, in and out. You can make this as clean or as involved as you want it to be by telescoping these side panels out. The interface adjusts automatically to accommodate those, so you can scroll up and down and see all these parameters that you're working on. You might recognize some of the tools as being similar to the ones that were in 1.2, the free version. However, there are a lot more parameters. For example, the number of color mixers has I think it's gone from 3 to 6 or 7 now. There's a palette editor that's new since the free version, as well as this color harmony panel, which lets you select complementary colors. And another feature that's new since version 4 is the pigment profiles, which lets us remap the color model from red, green, and blue to really any user-defined color model, such as red, yellow, and blue. And this lets us use complementary colors that are more close to natural media. As you can see here, this yellow and purple are complementary, which is much like traditional art. As I said before, we've added layer capabilities since version 2, which were not included in the free version. No, they're not exactly like Photoshop's, but they are very useful for glazing type effects, painterly effects, and there's quite a lot you can do with layers. You can have an unlimited number of layers, basically limited by memory. And there's some new ruler tools that have been greatly enhanced quite a bit. And there's just basically a number of things that have changed in the interface. There's also the new context strip, as we call it, which gives you some parameters that are specific to each type of tool. So this will change depending on which tool you're using, as you can see there. This makes it a lot easier to find the parameters for the specific tool that you're working on without having to know where everything is at in the interface. One other big change we've had since version 5 is the curve tool. Before, you could just draw a more or less a little bit of an arc, but this is expanded quite a bit, quite a lot. For example, there's the ability to draw a curve, but not just that, but you can fill it, you can stroke a path, you can use it sort of like a hybrid vector drawing tool. You can animate a brush along this path. There are basically different interpolation types, such as B-spline. There are even rotoscoping tools, which is a technique used in film and video to improve let's see, how should I say this? Green screening or blue screening for doing compositing. You can use it to remove objects such as a microphone or something that's been left in a green screen shot, or you can actually create a matte, an original matte, without even using a green screen by just going in and drawing it, and it's animatable. And that's just one big change we've made since the free version. I've talked about how the display technology has changed, and it's changed dramatically. Before, there was a sort of a glitch, a drawing glitch, and that's been cleared up. When you would zoom in, we used to call that swimming, because it would look like you were floating in water or something weird like that. But that's all been cleared up since the free version. There's also new zooming tools, keyboard shortcuts such as Control and Shift lets you work with the zooming in and out and panning. I will just quickly display. Pressing Control and Shift will let me pan like that. There's also a new smooth scaling mode that uses bilinear interpolation. So when you zoom in, you no longer see blocks, but you get a more smooth zooming effect. Particles. We did have particles in the original version called Optipustics. This has been extended and expanded dramatically. There's not only the original particles, even those have been significantly improved with shading and tinting, fog, force fields, and some new parameters. But there's also bristle brushes. We did have them originally, but they were very limited. They've been expanded quite a lot. Orbicals is a new tool which uses some 3D math to make a more interesting particle type of effect. And the foliage is a new tool in version 8 that this is a much more programmable and versatile version of the original particle system that is specifically designed for working with foliage, drawing trees, grass, flowers, and it is based on a rules library. And there's a very large number of parameters that you can change for each time the rule branches, and you can have a number of different branches. And that's all something that can be user-defined, saved, and reloaded. And that's just really brushing the surface at this point of the changes that have been made. If you go to the filter menu, we originally had about 80 filters. That's been doubled to about 140 now, and growing. There's quite a bit of, even if you look under the color filter, curve editor, that's something that's been added. That's very useful for photographic work and other types of visual effects work. There's just a lot of new transformation filters. 3D Designer, that's lets you convert your current image into a height map and animate it or create renders using a 3D engine that has been added to the program recently. You can create landscape renderings, 3D text, any number of type of things like that. 3D perspective, the sphereize tool has been greatly expanded to be more realistic. There's specular lighting, all kinds of changes, rendering, a lot of new rendering filters, Mandelbrot's, gems. There is a whole new category called the photographic filters, with things like day for night and star filter, fog filter, sunset filter, which sort of mimic lenses that you could get for a traditional 35mm camera, or a new digital camera that you would you place on the front of the lens. There's another new category called the animated filters, with a number of filters. One big thing we added in version 7.2 was the motion prediction module, which will let you create slow motion from regular motion using a lot of interpolation, motion prediction, and just generally really examining a motion file and using morphing to create new frames. And the animation menu has really exploded with new tools. The original free version did have an animation menu, but it was somewhat limited to loading and saving frames, and basically being able to scrub through them and draw on them individually. But that has been expanded quite a lot. There's a light table that lets you see frames before and after the frame you're working on. So sort of like working on a light table, or with onion skin. There's the ability to load and save AVIs, and load and save frames, image sequences, scanning frames from a scanner. There's quite a number of features that have been added for processing frames, such as cutting and copying and pasting, selecting blocks. You can set in and out points, and you can copy blocks of frames and move them around. You can reverse frames, time stretching. As I said before, we had the motion prediction module, but there's also time stretching with frame interpolation and other types of time stretching. You can make an animation loopable by cross-dissolving the endpoints. There's tools for working with interlaced video. As I said, there's the light table. You can clean up frames, clean non-photo blue pencil, and remove that from your images, and line cleanup. The new animation controls have been expanded a lot. Not only can you scrub through animation, but you can, when you have an animation loaded, you can select in and out points and do those a lot of those things I mentioned already. Let me close this. I've still only just scratched the surface. Brush keyframer will let you pick up an image from the screen, use it as a brush, and animate it by setting keyframes. You can scale, rotate, and change the opacity, and use different combine modes to animate brushes that way, or images around on the screen. The exposure sheet will let you record audio and do lip syncing, characters talking. This will help you set that up. There's an option to sequence frames in an animation. You could use a smaller number of frames to create a much larger animation by sequencing them, or simply by painting them basically onto a new roll of film basically. And there are a lot of new animation tools that have been added. Some of the more basic things that have really changed though is painting. There's a lot of new painting modes, of course, that have been added, but in the free version you could drop down this menu that would let you select some medias. This has been expanded in a more visual way to let you visually see all these medias that you can select, and there are quite a few that have been added over the years. That's just one of the things we've done to improve painting in the program. You might recognize the brush settings panel to some degree. It's changed quite a bit, but there's a lot that has changed here, such as a lot of post-process effects. They're not actually post-process effects anymore either. They all happen in real time as well, but a lot of these things have been added since the free version, such as a gouache and watercolor painting. that weren't in there before. There's a lifting setting that will say we're painting with a watercolor. That water might cause that paint that was already on there to dissolve and start lifting up into the water, and that's simulated using the lifting setting, as you can see there. There are new paper tools, new brush sets. There is a lot that has changed technology-wise. Filling tools such as the rectangle and the circle have been made real-time, and they're also anti-alias, which wasn't in the free version. Additional selection tools that have been added. And I talked about the technology, but we do now fully support multi-threading, but recently we've also added GPU support, which is really added a whole new level of performance to the program. And those some new GPU supported tools are starting to trickle in. We've got the 3D designer that uses it for lighting, and we've got a lighting tool that will let you create 3D lighting on a surface that uses the GPU. There's a Mandelbrot program that uses the GPU, and there's some other technologies that are in development there, of course, or at least on the list of things to be developed. Tablet support has been improved. There's support for twist, angle, and that sort of thing. We're presently working on improving support for various devices such as the Monoprice tablet, and I'm getting ready to wrap up. In fact, right now I'm running fairly long, so I'll just leave you with these basic thoughts that I've talked about a lot of things, but you can't cover it all in so many minutes, so I'll just have to cut it off there and talk to you later in the next video.